What's up, y'all? I'm Will here with Schedulefly, and this is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast, one of the highest rated hospitality podcasts in the world, brought to you by us at Schedulefly. We provide a very simple web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service. If you're on pencil and paper or Excel, or you're on some software with tons of bells and whistles and features you don't need or use, Schedulefly is the perfect place for you. Easy to use, point, click, and go, and we'll take great care of you. Schedulefly.com, free trial, check it out. All right, y'all, check it out. Stick is our sponsor, connectwithstick.com. This is an incredible text and marketing tool. So check this out. Engage your customers, drive foot traffic, and increase sales at your bar, your restaurant, your store with Stick. Your targeted messages reach your audience instantly, promoting special offers and events. Look, 98% of texts are seen within 3 minutes. So this thing is simple and it's effective and it works. Elevate your marketing strategy and watch your customer base grow with the most direct way to connect with your customers through text. Start today and see results on the very first text. Stick is a better way to connect with your customers and the easiest way to increase your sales. www.connectwithstick.com. And again, that's www.connectwithstick.com. Folks, this is an awesome sponsor. It's an awesome business. We at Schedulefly know them well. We know that the results are there. This is a highly effective tool, and it's run by a business run by great people. Check them out, connectwithstick.com. Hey, what's up, y'all? This episode is with my man, Reed Landry. Reed is a great dude. I've talked to him many times, longtime Schedulefly customer, has 5 places. He and his partner have 5 places up in D.C. And just there's so much wisdom in this episode from Reed about not just how to run a successful hospitality business, but how to be an entrepreneur and the types of things you need to think about when you're building and growing a business. So whether you're into restaurants or not, this is an incredible episode. Reed's a great dude, and just thoroughly enjoyed getting to talk to him and learn more about how he thinks and the challenges they've been facing since COVID, and then the way they approach those challenges. Super sharp dude, great operator. No wonder he's been so successful. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Make sure if you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, give us a rating, a comment. Any of that stuff just drives more traffic, y'all. Thank you so much. All right. Well, Reed, thank you for taking the time to jump on today up there in DC. Go ahead and just introduce yourself, Reed.
Reed Landry, just the co-managing partner of Mission Group in Washington, D.C. We have 5 bars up here currently. They're all kind of large format, anywhere from 7,000 square feet to about 14,000. Kind of high energy places. Put a lot of effort into the food and whatnot, but the atmosphere and is just kind of our main focus. So got started in the industry with kind of late night focused bars. We've since gone to places that are open 7 days a week, do everything from kind of brunch, happy hour, dinner, late night, private events. But they're kind of we feel that the energy comes from the bar in all the places that we have, and so that's largely the focus.
The energy comes from the bar. How did you get, walk me through how you initially got dialed in with hospitality?
I try to keep this brief. It's kind of a long story, but I was in internet advertising, probably started that about 2 years out of college. It was doing advertising brokerage. We were doing affiliate marketing, and my partner and I decided to start a social networking website as kind of a side project. There weren't a lot of options back then. It was basically kind of Friendster, MySpace, neither of which were very compelling. Facebook was just on college campuses. So we wanted to start something for people in their 20s and their 30s. tried to focus on a niche that we thought was compelling to people that would draw them in. So we focused on nightlife. So launched that I think late in 2005. And there's kind of a whole story to that, but basically opening a venue ended up being kind of a side project. You know, we were throwing these kind of big events for Halloween, St. Patrick's Day, July 4th, New Year's Eve. So it kind of stadiums at museums for anywhere from, I don't know, 1,000 to 6,000 people. And we're getting big crowds for those, and just got approached by a couple guys in the bar space, and just asked if I wanted to partner on opening a place with them. So it was kind of a no-brainer. The first bar that we opened was kind of a side project, but just with the position that we're in, it was fairly easy to drive people to that. And this place was basically open 3 days a week. Thursday to Saturday. I think it was 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe even open at 10. But this was back when Thursday night was kind of a big going out night. It's not really the case anymore.
Yeah.
But it was just totally late night focused, and kind of went from there. So we ended up buying into another place, and then kind of met my current business partner through that. And he and I, both the places that we had were very, they did very well. But I thought just being open 3 days a week, they basically didn't have food. They were just pretty limited in scope. So we want to do something that had food, it was open 7 days a week. They could do private events, and we just thought we could replicate this kind of party atmosphere. That was just this basically late night focus, but we wanted to do that whether people walked in the door at 11 o'clock for brunch, 5 o'clock for happy hour, any hour of the day. So we thought we could do something bigger. These places were probably 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, and we just thought there was much bigger potential. So we branched off probably after about 3 years of doing that, and that was 10 or 11 years ago. And we've opened several others since then.
That's an interesting way to get into it, man. So had you worked in hospitality as a teen or anything like that?
Basically, I mean, my only experience was as a teenager. I think I worked at like Boston Market. Obviously, totally different from what I ended up getting into. But I mean, basically, just got a taste for it with throwing these big events. Back through this social networking website.
What was the social net? What was the website?
It was called Late Night Shots. So I mean, it's kind of, talking about this in 2024, it's kind of difficult to articulate how different things were back then. I think basically with both the internet, and then also just with the way to connect to people. I mean, now if you ever meet someone, whether it's at a bar, whether it's just um, through a work event on the street, whatever. I mean, there's 15 different ways of finding them. There's social networking websites, there's dating websites, there's LinkedIn, there's everything. And this just didn't exist. So like I said, we just thought that the going out niche was something good to focus on for the social networking website. So it sounds quaint describing it now, but it was, when you signed up, you had to choose your 10 favorite bars. And then once you did that, so that would tag you to the bar. So there was basically a directory of every single bar.
That's pretty
You could
cool.
go on, see who the regulars were. And there was all kinds of stuff that you could do on the site. You could post photos, you could tag other people, you could tag them to the bars. But so you could go to any of these bars websites, you could see all these photos that were taken there. You could see who the people are that went there. I mean, there was you could tag people when you were at bars who were there, or tag yourself so you could see who was there on any given night.
Dude,
But
that's for the time. I mean, what year was this?
so it launched basically right at the end of 2005. So I mean, at that point, there was it was like I said, it was like Facebook, or it was not Facebook. It was like Friendster,
Yeah.
MySpace. And like I think anyone who was kind of like 24 years old at that point could look, despite kind of all the money that was getting thrown at those sites and all the press, you could look at them and just be like, these sites are not clean in design. There's ultimately really nothing to do on them. Once you go and add 500 friends, there just wasn't much to do beyond that. So I mean, there was like a dating component where it was like you could go on and you could choose up to like 10 people who you were interested in. And then it was like every Thursday, if there was matches, there would be emails sent out to you. Um, I'm trying to think. I mean, there were message boards. There were just like, there'd be like thousands of posts a day. And it was just, it would people asking for like advice on where to go out, like dating advice on like clothing, politics. I mean, there were all kinds of stupid discussions that happened on there. Um, but I think it got up to the point where there was probably 40,000 people on it in DC. It wasn't anything, we launched in some other cities, Charlottesville, Dallas, New York, just never really took off. And it was just a unique situation because I could see that kind of the appeal of the website was that it was kind of intimate. You had connections to people who were on it, which people liked. And so, I mean, that was cool in one sense, but it also became clear pretty early on that that would make it very difficult to scale and expand from there. Because when it just got to be kind of too many people, you didn't feel like you were that connected to them. It just lost the sense of it being a community. Um, but it was, for like 5 to 10, for like several 5,000 people, whatever. It was like their favorite website. Um, but it was just very difficult to expand from there.
I mean, that was really advanced for that time. Like, because most people, like, I mean, if you're not our age or whatever, I mean, there's probably a lot of people listening to this that don't even, like, barely even know what MySpace and Friendster were. I remember that. So what y'all were doing, you were probably you were ahead of the curve. What's cool that it transitioned into what it did. Um, so, so you get these places going, and how many locations do y'all have now?
So we have five now.
You have five now. Okay. Are you continuing to grow, or are you just holding down the fort, or?
Yeah, definitely continuing to grow. Obviously, COVID was kind of a strange period. There were a lot of opportunities after that, and we thought about going out, kind of opening. Yeah, you can open like five more places. I mean, there a lot of places unfortunately went under,
Yeah.
but there were a lot of and prices obviously were low. But I think we try to maintain kind of the same view on expansion, just regardless of kind of what the environment was. So, we've generally opened about like one every, about 2 years. We've opened a total of six. But I think we're very careful about opening places. We've just heard a lot of horror stories about, even if you open one that goes very poorly, um, that can just kind of tank things. It can steal your attention. It can be costly financially. You can kind of lose credibility with investors.
Mm.
So, I think my partner and I have always had a rule that it's just whoever says no, they win. So I think that's allowed us to be pretty cautious.
That's
And I
smart.
think, I mean, we're just kind of going for home runs. So I think, if you get too aggressive, start kind of drinking your own Kool-Aid, thinking things are going great, that seems like a great way to kind of ruin things. So we're both kind of aggressive guys. We want to grow really quickly, but we just try to avoid making stupid mistakes with regard to expansion.
Man, you just said several things that are so wise, my friend. You probably don't even know it. You do, but like how meaningful for any of those you that are listening. Now, the first thing you said, I think, is brilliant. Is you got two of y'all, and if somebody says no, they win. That's a simple idea, but also a very brilliant idea. And if you can stick with it and execute on it, it saves you probably so. I bet it saves y'all so many headaches and so much risk and so much money. The flip side of that is this little heuristic I always like that Wes and I talk about a lot, which is we got it from this guy named Derek Sivers, some internet guy. I don't know. I'm not even sure what Derek does now, but he had this thing years ago that we came across. It was hell yes or no. And so, like, he's like, I live my life by like every decision. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. If it's a maybe, or if it's, yeah, that sounds pretty cool, then it's a no. It has to be a hell yes, period. I love that y'all give each other the respect to, because that's probably hard sometimes when you're like, I mean, I know, like, I'm things like, yeah, yeah, I want to do this. And if, you know, somebody's like, no, it's like, well, you're wrong. Like, let me tell you why. So having the ability to do that is super wise, man. And knowing that not drinking your own Kool-Aid is another great piece of advice. That's really, again, just it's hard to understand how wise that is until you've drank your own Kool-Aid, I think, like, which I certainly have at times. But just being careful not to let success get to your head and think that it's all you or that you're so smart. I've learned so much about success over the years through trial and error and making mistakes and realizing that, you know, success is I always feel like there's three factors. I think there's hard work, and there's timing, and there's luck, right? And it's some combination. It's not the same amount of each one each time, but don't ever think that, you know, you got everything right and it was because you were so brilliant. You did a good job. You had a good idea. You worked hard. Yes. But there was some timing involved and there was some luck involved. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. Like schedule fly. I mean, you know, we've worked hard. We had a really good idea early on and the timing was great. And it was just, and there was also some luck with, like, partially because of the timing. We were ahead of the curve. Like, we did this through word of mouth and not having to raise a bunch of money. I can't imagine trying to start schedule fly today, now, and going, well, we're not going to raise money. We're going to grow one customer at a time. Well, there's 20 other scheduling companies and there's a lot, you know, it'd be real hard. But anyway, I think, like, I just think that kind of stuff is so wise, Reed, and important for people that are in business to, it's this idea of something called via negativa, which is success by the things you don't do, not by the things you do. And like, you just nailed two of those things.
Well, I mean, I think we try to keep the luck aspect in mind. I think part of it is kind of we're seeing that you know, DC was basically ascendant. I think from about 2000 2020, population was growing. You know, people were really excited about moving here. It seemed like there was a new hot neighborhood popping up every you know, 6 to 8 months. And I think, you know, we've been able to see, I think post-COVID, things have changed a lot. You know, there's any number of issues in DC. I think a lot of other cities are facing some of the same problems, crime, people not returning to work, probably never going to happen. So it's just kind of a different environment operating in a city where it's not just a foregone conclusion that it's just going to keep growing and that you know, people are just going to keep coming in the doors automatically. I think one other thing in DC is I think like during the Bush administration, but I guess both the Bush and Obama administrations, both of them just brought this excitement to DC. I think in very different ways. You know, they brought different crowds. Obviously, Bush brought a lot of people from Texas. You know, Obama brought a lot of people from Chicago. So they, you know, they impacted the city very differently, but regardless, they impacted the city. And you know, the past two administrations with Trump and Biden, you know, whatever you think of them, they bring very little to the city. I don't think any, you know, there's not a big core of people in Delaware or New York that are saying, you know, I'm going to move to DC. All my friends are working there. But it was, you know, back in, you know, 2000, 2016, it was, you know, even if you weren't working in the administration or if you weren't working on the Hill, a lot of people were just tempted to pick up, move to DC, join their friends, and just be a part of this kind of renaissance that was happening in the city. And you know, I think that is not happening with these administrations. So regardless of the problems
Mm.
that I mentioned that I think DC is facing and that many other cities are, it's a different environment politically, where there's not kind of this positive energy that is driving the city to a large extent.
All right, y'all, check it out. Stick is our sponsor, connectwithstick.com. This is an incredible text and marketing tool. So check this out. Engage your customers, drive foot traffic, and increase sales at your bar, your restaurant, your store with Stick. Your targeted messages reach your audience instantly, promoting special offers and events. Look, 98% of texts are seen within 3 minutes. So this thing is simple and it's effective and it works. Elevate your marketing strategy and watch your customer base grow with the most direct way to connect with your customers through text. Start today and see results on the very first text. Stick is a better way to connect with your customers and the easiest way to increase your sales. www.connectwithstick.com. And again, that's www.connectwithstick.com. Folks, this is an awesome sponsor. It's an awesome business. We at Schedulefly know them well. We know that the results are there. This is a highly effective tool, and it's run by a business run by great people. Check them out, connectwithstick.com. Layer in, you add in COVID, which, well, of course, that's what you said. I mean, people aren't coming back to work. You also add in, like, it's just an interesting economic time. I mean, money was free for a decade, which enabled a lot of
Hmm.
growth. And now that's not the case. And there's just a lot more, probably risk aversion and people that are, I mean, gosh, if you're, uh, if you're in a white collar job, and you're in finance or a lot of other industries, it's a tough, even heck in our world, like tech. I mean, these well-paid people are, if they still have a job, they're probably concerned about the next year right now. Like in that, which is
Yeah.
probably a lot of I mean, people that make 100 grand or more or whatever. That's a kind of in a recession right now. That whole world. So. I mean, the number of challenges that y'all have had to navigate over the last few years has got to be keeps you on your toes. I bet.
Yeah, I mean the financial situation definitely impacts our decision making because we've done both as far as new build out. We've done two totally new build outs and we've done three, or I guess four second generation spaces. And there's kind of benefits to both. Obviously, you can kind of just spec out the whole thing with new build outs and kind of have control over what it's going to look like. But yeah, I mean in this environment with higher interest rates, construction costs are higher. The last project we did, I think we got delayed by something like 6 months because of electrical panels that we were waiting on. So it's these kind of big economic issues and then these kind of obscure kind of supply chain issues that have really impacted us. And we took a lot of pride with our first several build outs kind of always opening on time. And this most recent one, we ran into a bunch of issues with that. So I think that's kind of informed our thinking. And I think over the next few months, I wouldn't be surprised if there's quite a few places that start probably going under. I think the COVID money is pretty much dried up at this point. And I think DC's having a tough time. So I think that informs our decision about expansion. But I think the idea of doing some year and a half long build out of a new space with all the costs and kind of headaches that come with that, just not as appealing as kind of looking more into the second generation stuff. It's just cheaper. You can do it more quickly. And it just seems to suit this environment much more.
Yeah. Has the types of places you think about going forward? And yeah, there is going to be, I mean, there's PPP money's out and all the other, everything's like the tide's going back out, right? So if you're exposed, you're
Yeah.
going to have some problems. Um, do you think that the your customer base is looking for something different going forward than they were prior to this?
I don't think it's necessarily related to that. I think it's changed quite a bit over the past, like since we opened the first Mission Group venue 10 years ago. I think, my partner was in his late 20s. I was in my early 30s. So, I mean, there were just a large number of people that were coming that were just to our places that were just personal friends of ours.
Yeah.
So to some extent, if we opened a place in a decent neighborhood, um, we could just open the doors and huge crowds would come out. Not just opening night or kind of several months. It would be years. So I think it was largely driven by that. But I think the appetite for kind of what types of venues people go to these days, in 2024 versus 2014, um, the places that we opened at the beginning were fairly divey. We opened them. It was very inexpensive, and I think people just have more elevated expectations for
Yeah.
the type of venues that they hang out at. They want to take photos of the venue. They want to take photos of themselves. It needs to kind of pop, and so it's obviously more expensive to build places like that. They're kind of more dynamic, but I think yeah, the whole dive model, it still works to some degree, but I think at the scale that we're doing it, where we're opening places that are 10 to 14,000 square feet, I mean, that's a lot of bodies you have to get in on a
Yeah.
nightly basis,
Yep.
and you have to change with the times as far as what the expectations are for that. So I think that is a huge change that we've noticed just as far as kind of the types of just the decor and the thought that you have to put into it.
Did y'all did you raise capital to get started? Y'all just fund these yourselves? Has the growth been funded by the business or?
Very little for the first two. We put in a bunch, basically a few friends who put in some, but
Right.
we had kind of a patient contractor who we funded a lot of that with revenue after we opened. Um, Two of the places that we've opened since then have been fairly significant raises. But it's expanded a little bit as far as the investors that have been involved. Um, but we just had no choice. We didn't have that much money at the beginning, and like I said, we had second generation spaces, and felt that we didn't need to build kind of a 2024 type space back then.
Yeah.
It was very different.
Equity or loans or like
Kind of mix.
yeah.
So we do take bank loans on them. It's like very very appealing to do that, obviously, because it's much cheaper. I think the deals have generally gone very well for our investors. So we've kind of taken a little bit more in bank loans each time. But I think it goes back to my original point. I think we just don't want to do something stupid.
Yeah.
You can't assume that every place is going to be successful, and we just don't want to get left hanging the hand, holding the bag with some huge bank loan. So there's a lot of people we know who've just kind of gone all in on loans, and it can be a lot cheaper, but they probably don't sleep as well, and there's a lot more risk in that. So
Good. Good, good, good. Um speaking of you and I texted yesterday, speaking of people like your places need to pop and people taking pictures and you know, you had initially been in this sort of social media space and we were talking yesterday about kids and phones and how many kids do you have?
three.
How old are they?
So basically almost 11, 9, and 5.
Okay. Well, I said delay, delay, delay. So, dude, I got to tell you, man, it's it's a really interesting time with that. My kids are 20, 17, and 14, and so they kind of came up when like they were your kids' ages, when iPhones sort of came out or had been around a little while, and like we're all trying to figure out like everybody that like all my friends that have kids the same age, we're all like, oh, what do we give them? Like, what do we do? When do we give them an iPhone? And then like the one kid would get one, and this is particularly with my daughter who's 20. It's like, oh, well, everybody has one but me, and then we were like, okay, well, it's fine because like we'll just limit, and then it blows up, man. And then like they're on these things. and TikTok and just scrolling and taking these self. It's like, oh God. So I feel bad. And even
Yeah.
my kids know, like, they're like, I don't, it's just this weird time. I feel like my kids were in the unfortunate situation of sort of being like the guinea pigs for this stuff. Now we're all learning, like, it's highly addictive. It's designed to give you these dopamine hits and you can't like put it down. And so, yeah, just hold off. Here, man, like right here, just get them one of these. This is all they need. This is all they need. They can call you
No,
and
that's
text you.
incredible. Being that you've had one of those for 4 years. Yeah, I think I mean it's scary thinking about my kids getting those. My oldest just got a computer, and I mean he can spend hours just it's not on social media, but just it's mainly
Games.
looking up sports
Oh,
statistics and
yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
footballreference.com and ESPN and just yeah, I mean it's just it's very addictive, and obviously I see what that can do to to me. I mean I feel like I'm just constantly looking at it with work.
Yeah.
My partner and I are just we're basically just kind of always on looking at the video cameras at the places if we're not on site. And it's tough to step back from. But I'm impressed that you've kind of found a way to do that. I'm not sure if I could. I think I may be a lost cause at this point. But
It, it's, you have to, well, when I went in there 4 years ago and I said, I don't want this. I had an iPhone 11. I was like, I don't want this anymore. I want a flip phone. And the guy looked at me like had two heads, and he's like, well, let me go see if there's anything in the back. Cause I mean, they didn't have anything on display or anything. And he came out with this is a Kyocera. It's like the old remember the Nextel digital pager? It's like all the
yeah,
contractors
yeah,
use them and
yeah,
stuff. Like
yeah.
that's what this is. It's that technology. And, but it's like a brick. I mean, it's like military grade. I've dropped this thing hundreds of times. You drop your iPhone, screen cracks, got to go in, spend $200. This thing's been dropped so many times. And, but he's like, I'll see you back in 2 weeks. I was like, well, you probably will, dude. Like, you probably will. And then, all my friends and family were laughing at me like, oh, whatever. And I'm kind of stubborn. And so I was like, you know what? I'll prove them wrong. And then like, so that was a big part of it at first. And then I just got so used to it. I was like, and I liked myself better. I was like, man, I'm not like sitting at a stoplight, like scrolling through freaking, text or whatever. Just so then I just, it stuck. It's hard for most people. It really is. But I do think, like I saw the other day, Seinfeld Jerry Seinfeld's wife, they got their son a flip phone for graduation, and she was like, "Look, he's already got an iPhone, but we're really hoping he'll switch to this." And ironically, so in that article that I sent you, there's a guy named Wyatt, and Wyatt's 20 years old, and he goes to Williams. He's an intern here at the studio. So the craziest thing happened is that lady contacted me on LinkedIn, Jennifer Jolly, and she wanted to interview me about using the flip phone. So I spent like an hour on the phone with her one day, and I was like, "Hey, I got to go. I got to run down to the studio. I got to do this podcast." So I drive down here, and literally, like I've just talked to her, okay, and I come here, and I walk in, and Wyatt is here. I'd never met him. He was a new intern. This a couple months ago, and he goes, "Hey, Mr. Brawl, I'm getting everything set up for your podcast." He goes, "I hear you have a flip phone." And I was like, "Yeah," and I always hear that, and people kind of like make fun of me. I was like, "Yeah, I'm kind of old school, whatever." And he goes, "No, no, no, I love it." And he literally pulls a flip phone out of his pocket. This kid's 20 years old, right? And I'm like, "You're kidding me." He's like, "No, man, I didn't like who I was when I had my iPhone." And so I called the reporter back. I'm like, "Listen, you're not going to believe what just happened." And I told her, I'm like, "Do you want to interview him?" She's like, "Absolutely, I do." So that's how he got in that story. But I thought it was really cool because he's like, and he's like, and my daughter's the same. She's 20 years old. She's like, we're all trying to figure this thing out. Like, we don't like our phones. We're on them all the time. We're just trying, like, but we can't do without them. And like, what do we do? Like, it's a big dilemma. Like, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping my point to this long story is I think the pendulum went so far, particularly with teens. Like, as adults, we're like, we can manage it better, right? But you take a not fully formed and fully developed brain of a 20-year-old or I mean, gosh, my 17 and 14-year-old sons, like they can't manage that. So if we don't manage it for them, they got problems. And so I think this will, my hope is that maybe like some of these other, and you're starting to see more of this, like the Samsung Flip or whatever, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an iPhone Flip in like 3 years, because there's something about like, even if this open, it was a full screen and I could still do everything, that there's something about doing that that kind of like tells your brain, all right, I'm done, for now. There's just something that happens. So anyway, long story is keep them, keep your kids away from those things as long as you can, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some momentum to that with, I mean, there's talk of kind of banning them in schools, at least during the day.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think people recognize the issue, but I think adults just have, maybe the impact on their brain isn't as severe as teenagers using it. But I think it's just the just never being able to kind of escape, whether it's work or kind of all the entertainment options. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great, but I think the prospect of having to deal with this with kids coming up, I don't even know how we're going to handle it.
Well, there's a book called, have you heard of the book called The Anxious Generation?
No, I don't think so.
Check that out. That's actually getting a lot of run in the school system now. It's basically a big it just goes into all the research and all the data about how much addiction there is. I mean, these things are like, they're like a electronic drug, right? I mean, they really are. Like, it does the same thing to your brain. It just says, I want more. It's like sugar or a drug or whatever. It's like, it's so ridiculously addictive. So it does, it's gonna, like, adults are gonna have to step in and be like, okay, we got to set boundaries, we got to set rules. And the anxious generation is fortunately getting a lot of run in the education system right now, because it says, like, it kind of lays out a mandate, like, we should all agree to these things, and one of those things is, no phones in schools,
Hmm.
just period. Like, if you have to get in touch with your kid, call the school, like, but I mean,
Yeah.
kind of like we've always done forever. But that's one of the things. So it is, I would encourage you as a parent of kids that are a little bit younger, that are ahead of this, that you're ahead of this now, you and your bride, check out that book, because it's like, these kids just, we don't need these things in their hands. But the funny thing, but this comes back to, um, the world of, bars and restaurants and everything else. And I wonder if, like, you remember, like, when phones first, like when we first got cell phones, you probably, maybe if it's been 10 years, I don't know. Do you remember when people used to talk on their phones in restaurants? Like, you'd be like, there would be all these people talking on their phones. You're like, what? Why is that person talking? It was like really annoying. And nobody really does that anymore, but nobody really
Hmm.
talks much anymore. I guess they text, but you don't hear people talking on phones. It's like kind of a known thing. And I'm just wondering if eventually maybe people get over this, like, nonstop selfies and texting. And like, you go out now and you see like a couple sitting in a restaurant and they're like both on their phones or whatever. I wonder if that'll become a little bit taboo eventually too, because it's really annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I think one big impact it's had on the bar industry is that, I guess 10, even like, I guess 15, 20 years ago, even like 10 years ago, when you'd go out, there wasn't really the concern that kind of someone was gonna like take a video of you or take a photo. And it's not even if, I'm not talking about people like doing stuff that's like bad, but I just think there's a level of kind of consciousness. People are kind of just a little bit hesitant, just knowing that it's so public that, if they have any like just misstep or just anything like that, that it could just end up being broadcast, or they could end up being in a photo. It was just different. I mean, I think in some ways, maybe it's caused people to clean up their act to some degree when they're out in public or they're out at bars or restaurants. But I do think there is just kind of, it changes the comfort level a little bit, just knowing that these phones are so ubiquitous, and that, it's unpredictable as far as, what can happen with them. And I think the sense of privacy has gone down. I think, like I said, there's
Yeah.
probably positive aspects to that, but I think, I think it does detract a little bit from just kind of the idea of just going out and relaxing. Um, but it's hard to say. So I don't know what direction it's going to go in as far as, if there will be more or less usage. I think it seemed to me just when, when they first, I guess when, the iPhones came out in 2008 or something, but I don't think people were really using them a ton, kind of with apps and everything like that, till probably 2011,
Yeah.
2012, kind of all the dating stuff and whatnot. So I think a lot of that stuff was really cool about all, the ways that you can connect with people online. But I think it has an impact on kind of social development too. That if you can just rely on meeting people purely on your phone or on these apps, there's not as many people that will just walk up to you and approach you, which used to be commonplace. And I think that that seems almost strange at this point.
It really is. And then nobody knows how to talk on them. Like, do you have people answering the phones at your place? I mean, do you have people that know how to answer the phone? Like know how to have an
uh,
actual conversation when somebody calls with questions?
yeah, I mean, I can see it a little bit as far as just I think we have we have a great staff. Um, I think for the most part we tend to attract people who are social. I think kind of one of the biggest things that we do when hiring is we say do you hang out at our places? And if the answer is no, it's kind of like how would you know how to treat a customer who comes here? Kind of why would you want to spend 30 to 40 hours a week here? So I think, we tend to attract a group that kind of goes out a lot, it's kind of more social. But I think, I think it's clearly had some level of impact on just social interactions and kind of just their level of comfort in dealing with, perhaps customer situations that can be a little bit tenuous or whatnot. Just given that so much of the interaction these days is electronic and not in person. So,
Yeah, I have this idea for a place called NP, which is no phones. I would go there in a second. Like if somebody opened a place down the street, it's like you can't take a phone in. Oh, it would. I tell you, man. Maybe I'd be the only one there. I don't know, but I would love a place like that. I think it'd be awesome.
yeah, I mean, there was just a big nightclub in DC that opened. It does not allow phones, and I think it's appealing to a lot of people just to have some place where you can go
Yeah.
where there's not a concern that I guess it's that people aren't going to be on them and be distracted, but also that there's just not going to be videos and photos taken of everything.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I think that's smart. There's a need for that. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I wanted to ask you about the people. So, um, for a while there, it was like it seemed like almost everybody I talked to, um, gosh, for over a year, nobody could get anybody to come to work. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Have you run into that, or are you still able to get the
You mean
type of
as
people?
far as us attract employees or just kind
Yeah.
of the general work environment in DC?
Well, let's both start with your ability to attract employees.
Um, I think we have less difficulty with that than a lot of places. I think bartenders, servers, barbacks, they know that they can come and make good money at our places. But it wasn't, I think particularly during COVID, I think it was very difficult at a lot of places, getting people to come to work. Just we tend to, with kind of the demographic that we have working, I think there wasn't as much concern, about a lot of the issues. I think, it was different for us than kind of like a fine dining place. But I think, we've been lucky. We have good pipelines as far as, a lot of colleges around where our venues are. We get a lot of referrals. So I think, there are occasionally periods where it's been a challenge. But overall, we don't have a lot of difficulty attracting people. And, obviously, some candidates are better than others, but, we really focus on referrals from current employees, just to kind of, just obviously for references and whatnot. But I think, we've been fortunate.
You know, I want to let you roll and respect your time, but one thing you said, I forgot to mention this. I thought it was really interesting because you talked about the different administrations that have been through there. So you're already looking at 4 more years of one or the other, like most likely, unless
Yeah.
something crazy happens. That is that is quite fascinating. I wonder what'll be the future of DC with politics has gotten so. I mean, it's always been pretty divisive, but boy, it's just a different level now. So you just it's the ongoing challenge of operating a business in hospitality is you never really know what's going to happen, and don't ever think you've figured it all out because something's going to happen that proves you wrong, right? And you just got to be. I mean, y'all are so nimble and agile and able to just take on so many different things. There's like in any given day, something could happen that just completely throws everything off. And I always just have so much respect for folks like you, Reed, that just kind of manage through it and keep your cool, and then you're able to still take great care of employees and guests. Man, I think it's a special skill set, to be honest with you.
Appreciate it. It's nice of you to say. But I mean, we just try to stay very laser focused on what we do, not try to get kind of big headed about, well, we have these bars that are going well, so therefore we could do this, that, and the other. We just really, even the places that we had back in like 2009, we want to have places where when you walk in, you're like, whoa, kind of
Yeah.
feels like it's a party, whether it's 11 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning on the other end. I think that helps attract staff, and I think that's kind of the customers who appreciate that. That's kind of who we're going after. But I think try to stay focused on that. And I think thinking back on the past, 4 years, I think, my partner and I talk a lot about just the number of predictions that we've made that were just totally wrong.
Yeah.
From the onset of COVID, being like, this isn't going to be a big deal, nothing's going to happen, and they shut things down. It'll be back open in like 1 week, and then there were restrictions. Thought those were going to kind of disappear more quickly, and then thinking people were going to come back to work 5 days a week. Um, just wrong on so many of those. So I think we try to set the businesses up so that we can kind of be wrong with those predictions and kind of stick to the basics with what we know how to do, because it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen in DC over the next year, kind of over the next 5 years. There's just so many different variables. Public safety, just costs, the interest rates, and kind of loans, and kind of construction, how that's going to be. So no way for us to predict that kind of stuff. And so we just try to keep our focus just very narrow, kind of the type of concepts that we do, type of neighborhoods that we open up in. And just that's worked well. And I don't think we want to go kind of outside our comfort zone very far.
Smart. This is the so much of what you said is so applicable not just to restaurants but to any entrepreneur, any business. Um, Focus on what you can control. In your situation, like you guys focus on what's inside your four walls. You can always control that. How you treat your people, you can always control that. Everything else is, then you just have room to just go, okay, okay. Well, we adjust based on this event that's happening or something we couldn't predict or control. No problem. Let's focus on what we can control and keep a narrow laser focus. I love it, dude. It's great advice. Great talking to you. Really appreciate the business at Schedulefly, and I've just thoroughly enjoyed getting to talk to you this way. I hope that I can get up there at some point, which I will be coming probably once a year because my dad was, laid to rest at Arlington, so we'll be coming up annually to see him. So I'll get to meet you
Yeah,
in
that would
person.
that'd be great. Hope we can get together. Didn't even dive into the wrestling topic. Um, but I mean, also with Schedule Fly, it's incredible what you guys have done. I think there are just so many bar and restaurant software platforms for just I mean, accounting, scheduling, financials, and there's always so many kind of bells and whistles that are thrown in and kind of promised. And I think we really respect the fact that you guys just have a very simple system. It works very well. It's intuitive, and it's been great for our company. And I think it's really unique as far as what you guys have built. Just something solid that just works very well, as opposed to kind of trying to do everything and kind of getting fancy like a lot of these other products do. So there's kind of a short list of software platforms we've ever tried that have been useful to us, and we really appreciate it.
We're the mission group of employee scheduling. How about that? Locked in and
Yeah.
focused, right? And
Yeah.
not trying to do too many things, not drinking our own Kool-Aid, and just staying focused on what we can control. Well, man, Reed, I appreciate it very much. Dude, thank you so much. It really enjoyed hanging out with you today and talking.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Will. Enjoyed it.
All right, man. We'll see you.